A review of the rule language regarding credit by examination that was adopted by the State Board of Education in June reveals a number of changes effective August 27, 2018. The purpose of this presentation is to highlight some of the changes and the challenges districts face in implementing them. There are several changes made to the language in the area of general provisions. A change was made to the rule regarding the tests provided by Texas Tech University and the University of Texas at Austin to require that the universities will provide assessments that are both in alignment with the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills and address all accessible Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills at the appropriate level of rigor. The previous language focused on aligning the assessments with appropriate breadth of coverage of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Additionally, a minor change was made to include the acronym for Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, TEX. Language was also changed to reflect the need to have school board approval for not only the development of the test, but also the use of tests or to purchase examinations that thoroughly test the text in the appropriate grade level or subject area. A change was made to the language in the area of assessment for acceleration in kindergarten through grade 5 to include text that requires school board approval of an audit process for kindergarten through grade 5. Similar to the change associated with an audit for assessment for acceleration in kindergarten through grade 5, a change was also made to the language in the area of assessment for grades 6 through 12 to include school board approval of an audit process for district-developed examinations for high school courses. Here again, you will notice a change to the language associated with aligning the assessment to the text, as well as the inclusion of some additional language. The references to external evaluation and to validity and reliability have been removed from this section and placed in an area that focuses more specifically on examinations for credit for courses that have a state end-of-course assessment. The references to the test development process and to a statement certifying that the examination meets certain criteria have also been removed from this section and added to a new section. A section has been added to address the requirement for a public annual report to be made by the school district or the provider of the assessment and to identify the information needed in the report. An examination for credit for a course that has a state end-of-course assessment is required to be externally validated and determined to have alignment with text to assess the appropriate level of rigor and to yield comparable distribution of results across tested subgroups. Language associated with public reporting requirements has also been addressed in the recently adopted text. An important change to note is that the deadline associated with requirements for examinations for courses that do not have a state end-of-course assessment has been extended until the 2019-2020 school year.
As previously mentioned, the areas that seem the most challenging concern are appropriate passing standards, validity, and reliability of exam scores. These are the three areas of focus for the remainder of the presentation. Setting the acceptable passing standard should not be based on an arbitrary numerical value, such as the percentage of items correct on an exam. Depending on the level of difficulty of the exam items, using the percent correct as a passing standard could cause variation in results from one test administration to the next. Instead of simply determining the passing standard based on a percentage of correct items, the standard should be based on the level of difficulty required by the examinee to show understanding of the concept tested. Basing the passing standard on level of difficulty should result in more stable test outcomes than basing it on the percentage of correct items. Let's look at an example of this scenario. Let's use the sample assessment here as an example of comparing passing standards based on the percent of items correct versus standards based on level of difficulty. Suppose this assessment is an assessment to determine the understanding of multiplication of the average adult using paper and pencil only, no calculators. Most would agree that the items seen here are in order from least to greatest with respect to difficulty, number 1 being the least difficult and number 10 being the most difficult. The question we should ask when setting the standard is, which items should an adult need to answer correctly to convince us that he or she has an adequate understanding of multiplication? Since the items are ordered from least to greatest with respect to item difficulty, theoretically, examinees should answer them in order. In other words, examinees who answer exactly one question correctly should answer only number 1 correct. Examinees who answer exactly 5 questions correctly should answer numbers 1 through 5 correctly, and so forth. In most sessions we've conducted on standard setting, the participants indicate the adult would need to answer 5 to 7 questions correctly in order for them to be convinced that the adult adequately understands multiplication. For the exercise, let's set the passing standard at 5 questions and see what happens. Here the passing standard is set at question 5, the most difficult question expected to be answered correctly, which correlates to 50% of the exam. If we remove the 2 most difficult items, we can keep the passing standard set at question 5. However, the passing standard now correlates to 62.5% of the exam. Removing the 2 most difficult items remaining, we can still keep the passing standard set at question 5. However, the passing standard now correlates to 83.3% of the exam. In our previous example, the passing standard did not change. It remained at question 5 for the 3 different assessments. What did change was the number of questions on the assessment, which affected the percent of correct items needed to pass on the 3 different exams. Valid exam scores are necessary to determine meaningful passing standards. Validity is a measure of how well an exam measures what it claims to measure. Types of validity include content validity, concurrent validity, and predictive validity. Content validity is the extent to which the exam items are connected to the content being assessed. Subject matter experts review the exam items for connection to the curriculum being assessed. This is typically a subjective process. Concurrent validity is estimated by calculating the correlation between the examinee's performance on an accepted instrument that assesses the specified content and examinee's performance on the current instrument. Concurrent validity provides evidence that the exam is measuring the specified content accurately. Predictive validity is estimated by calculating the correlation between the examinee's performance on the current exam and examinee's performance on some future measure. For example, SAT score predicting college success. Reliable exam scores are necessary for the exam to be able to produce valid exam scores. Reliability measures include internal consistency, test-retest, alternate form. Internal consistency is a measure in which items on an exam are correlated in order to determine how well they measure the same construct or concept. Internal consistency coefficients include Cronbach's alpha, KR20, split half. Test-retest reliability is the consistency of scores produced by examinees from one period of time to another on the same exam. Test-retest reliability is determined using the correlation between the 2 sets of exam scores. Alternate form reliability is the consistency of scores produced by examinees from one form of the exam to another. The forms are usually administered close together, if not the same day. Alternate form reliability is also determined by calculating the correlation between the 2 sets of exam scores. In summary, the new CBE rules indicate that exams should be producing reliable and valid scores, and that the passing standard for the exam must indicate mastery of the course content. To ensure such quality requires resources that most districts probably do not have. These limitations make it almost impossible for districts to develop their own CBEs, thus defaulting to the university-developed exams.